There is a tiara sitting inside Kensington Palace right now that carries more weight than any crown in the royal collection. It belonged to Diana. And for decades, the question of who would wear it next has been one of the most quietly explosive debates inside the British royal family. Now, that question has been answered. And the answer has sent shockwaves through the palace walls. Princess Anne made a decision. A deliberate, calculated, deeply personal decision. She bypassed Camilla entirely and placed Diana's tiara in Catherine's hands. That single act said more than any royal statement ever could. To understand why this matters, you have to understand what Diana's jewelry means to this family. These are not simply decorative pieces. They are symbols. They carry stories. They carry pain. They carry power. Every tiara, every necklace, every bracelet that once touched Diana's skin is a piece of living history. And whoever wears these pieces is not just wearing jewelry. They are wearing a statement. Diana's tiara has been carefully protected since her death in 1997. The royal family has been extraordinarily guarded about where her most personal pieces go. Some items were passed directly to William and Harry. Others were stored away from public sight. But this particular tiara has been at the center of quiet conversations inside royal circles for years. Camilla wanted it. That much, according to multiple royal observers, was never really a secret. As queen consort, Camilla has worked hard to build her own identity within the monarchy. She has collected jewels, worn historic pieces, and positioned herself as a fully legitimate member of the senior royal family. Getting her hands on a piece connected to Diana would have been a significant symbolic victory. It would have suggested continuity, acceptance, perhaps even forgiveness. But Anne said no. Princess Anne is not a woman who makes decisions carelessly. She is the hardest-working member of the royal family by almost every public measure. She is private, precise, and deeply loyal to the institution she has served her entire life. She was also one of Diana's most complicated relationships inside the palace. The two women were never close. But Anne understood exactly what Diana represented to the public. She understood the power of that legacy. So when Anne chose to transfer the tiara to Catherine, she was not simply passing on a piece of jewelry. She was making a statement about the future. She was saying, clearly and without apology, that Diana's legacy belongs to the line of succession. It belongs to the future king's wife. It belongs to the woman who will one day be queen. That choice has layers that the palace has not fully addressed. And the silence from Camilla's team speaks volumes. What exactly is the history behind this tiara, and why did Anne feel so strongly about keeping it away from Camilla? The answer goes deeper than most people realize. The tension between Princess Anne and Camilla Parker Bowles did not begin yesterday. It did not begin when Charles married Camilla in 2005. It did not even begin when Diana died. This quiet, carefully concealed conflict has roots that stretch back decades. And to truly understand why Anne refused Camilla's request, you have to understand the history that sits between these two women. Anne is the daughter of Queen Elizabeth II. She grew up inside the strictest version of royal duty. For Anne, the crown is not a privilege. It is a responsibility. It is a calling. Every decision she makes is filtered through one question. What is best for the monarchy? That is her North Star. That has always been her North Star. Camilla entered the picture as the other woman. That is simply the historical reality. Charles loved Camilla long before he married Diana. He continued that relationship during his marriage. And the fallout from that destroyed one of the most beloved figures the royal family has ever produced. Diana did not just suffer privately. She suffered in front of the entire world. And the British public never forgot who was responsible. And watched all of it. She watched her brother's marriage collapse. She watched Diana spiral into isolation inside palace walls. She watched the press destroy Diana while Charles and Camilla carried on. And though Anne never spoke publicly about her feelings toward Camilla, those who know her well say she never fully accepted Camilla the way the public was eventually asked to. When Queen Elizabeth finally gave her blessing to Charles and Camilla's marriage, many in the family followed her lead. It was the dutiful thing to do. But duty and genuine acceptance are two very different things. Anne is disciplined enough to be dutiful. She attended the wedding. She carried out her royal responsibilities alongside Camilla without public incident. But observers close to the family have long noted that the warmth between Anne and Camilla has always been noticeably absent. Some reports suggest that Anne found Camilla's rise within the institution deeply uncomfortable. Not because of personal jealousy, and has never been interested in status games, but because of what it represented. Rewarding the woman who helped destroy Diana felt, to Anne, like a betrayal of something important. A betrayal of standards. A betrayal of the woman who gave the monarchy two of its future kings. Then came the question of Diana's possessions. Her jewelry. Her legacy. And suddenly, the tension that had been simmering quietly for years had a very specific and very public flashpoint. Camilla's request for the tiara was not made loudly. These things never are inside the palace. But it was made. And Anne's refusal was equally quiet, equally firm, and absolutely final. Those who understand royal dynamics say Anne's decision was not impulsive. It was thought through. It was intentional. And it was, in its own way, a message delivered directly to Camilla without a single word being spoken out loud. The real question now is what that message actually means for the balance of power inside the modern royal family. If you are enjoying this breakdown, like this video and subscribe for more deep analysis. There are moments inside royal history that look small on the surface but carry enormous weight underneath. The transfer of Diana's tiara from Anne's protection to Catherine's hands is exactly one of those moments. It happened quietly. It was not announced with a press release. There was no official statement. But within royal circles, the ripple effect was immediate and impossible to ignore. To understand the significance of this choice, you have to understand the relationship between Anne and Catherine. It was not always warm. When Catherine first entered the picture as William's girlfriend, Anne was watchful, reserved, and has seen young women enter this family before. She has seen what the institution does to them. She has seen how the pressure, the scrutiny, and the impossible expectations can break a person from the inside out, and does not give her trust easily. She never has. But Catherine earned it. Slowly, methodically, and without fanfare. Catherine did not try to charm Anne. She did not perform warmth for the cameras and then behave differently behind closed doors. What Anne saw, over years of observation, was a woman with genuine resilience. A woman who understood duty the same way and understood it. Not as a burden. As a purpose. When Catherine stepped into her role as Princess of Wales, something shifted in Anne's assessment of her. Catherine was not simply filling a title. She was filling the emotional space that Diana had once occupied in the public imagination. She was doing it with grace, with discipline, and with a quiet strength that reminded many senior royals of the best qualities Diana had possessed, without the instability that had made Diana so difficult for the institution to manage. And noticed all of this. And when the question of Diana's tiara came to a head, and made her choice based on everything she had observed. Some reports suggest that Anne had been considering this transfer for some time. It was not a reactive decision made in response to Camilla's request. It was a decision that had been forming in Anne's mind long before the request was ever made. Camilla's approach simply forced a timeline. The symbolism of the transfer is breathtaking when you sit with it. And the daughter of the late Queen, the most senior working royal, the woman who has protected the institution with fierce dedication for over 5 decades, looked at the future of the monarchy and made a judgment. She decided that Diana's legacy should flow forward through the legitimate line. Through the woman who will stand beside the future king. Through the woman who will help shape the next chapter of what the British royal family means to the world. That is not a small decision. That is a declaration. Catherine reportedly received the tiara with deep emotional awareness. Those close to her say she understands the weight of what she now holds. This is not a piece of jewelry to be worn lightly at a state dinner. This is a responsibility. A connection to a woman the world still mourns. A reminder that the legacy of Diana is very much alive inside the walls of the modern monarchy. And Camilla, who had believed her position as queen consort gave her a legitimate claim to pieces of historic royal jewelry, suddenly found herself on the outside of a decision that said something very clear about where she truly stands in the eyes of the family's most senior members. The palace has said nothing publicly. But the silence itself is a kind of answer. Step back from the jewelry for a moment. Step back from the personal dynamics and the quiet palace tensions. Look at this transfer from a wider lens. Because what and has done carries implications that go far beyond one tiara. It touches the very question of what the British monarchy is trying to become in the 21st century. And it reveals a fault line inside the institution that has never fully healed. The British royal family has been fighting a perception battle for decades. Ever since Diana's death, the public has held the institution under a microscope. Every decision, every ceremony, every symbolic gesture is analyzed. People want to know whether the monarchy learned anything from what happened to Diana. They want to know whether the institution that failed her so completely has genuinely changed, or whether it simply got better at hiding its flaws. Anne's decision speaks directly to that question. By choosing Catherine over Camilla, Anne sent a message to the watching world. She said that the future of this monarchy is not built on rewriting the past. It is not built on rehabilitating those who caused harm. It is built on honoring what Diana represented and carrying that forward through the people who have earned the right to carry it. That is a profound institutional statement dressed up as a personal one. Consider what it would have meant if Camilla had received the tiara. The optics would have been devastating to a significant portion of the British public and the global audience that follows the royal family closely. Diana remains one of the most beloved figures in modern history. Polls taken years after her death consistently show that her approval ratings dwarf those of almost every other royal family member. Giving her tiara to the woman widely associated with the breakdown of her marriage would have felt, to millions of people, like a final insult. And understood this. And always understands the optics even when she pretends not to care about them. Her genius has always been in making deeply calculated decisions look like simple, principled ones. But there is another layer here that goes beyond public perception. This transfer is also about the internal hierarchy of the royal family. It is about who holds real influence and who holds merely a title. Camilla has a title. She is Queen Consort. That is an extraordinary position by any measure. But titles inside the royal family are not always the same as genuine authority. Real authority comes from respect, from history, from relationships built over decades, and has all three. And in this moment, she used them. Some royal analysts believe this decision also reflects growing concern inside senior royal circles about Camilla's long-term influence over Charles. There have been quiet whispers for years about the degree to which Camilla shapes Charles's decisions, about the access she controls, about the way certain individuals have found themselves frozen out of the king's inner circle since Camilla's influence grew stronger. And, who has never been interested in being managed or frozen out by anyone, may have seen this tiara transfer as a way of drawing a very clear boundary. The boundary says this: there are things that belong to the future of this monarchy that are not yours to claim. No matter your title, no matter your proximity to the king. That boundary matters enormously as the royal family navigates a transition period unlike any it has faced before. William and Catherine are preparing to step into the most visible roles in the institution. The decisions being made right now about legacy, symbolism, and inheritance will shape the public's relationship with the monarchy for generations. And chose to make sure that relationship is shaped by Diana's memory rather than complicated by her absence. If you are enjoying this breakdown, like this video and subscribe for more deep analysis. When powerful people receive a public rejection, they have two choices. They can respond, or they can go quiet. Camilla went quiet. And in the world of royal politics, silence is never simply silence. It is a strategy. It is a calculation. And it tells you everything about how a person truly feels about what just happened to them. Camilla has spent the better part of 3 decades carefully constructing a public image. It has been one of the most remarkable rehabilitation projects in modern royal history. She went from being the most hated woman in Britain to being accepted, tolerated, and eventually crowned as Queen Consort. That journey required patience, discipline, and an almost inhuman ability to absorb public hostility without showing a reaction. She became very good at the long game. Very good at waiting. Very good at letting time do the work that words could not. But this situation is different. This is not public hostility from strangers. This is rejection from inside the family. From one of the most senior and respected royals alive. From a woman whose opinion carries genuine weight within the institution. And it was delivered not through words but through action. Through a transfer that Camilla could not stop, could not reverse, and cannot publicly address without making herself look worse. Those close to Camilla's circle have remained notably tight-lipped about her reaction. No anonymous briefings to sympathetic journalists. No carefully placed stories in the tabloids suggesting Camilla's side of things. Just silence. And for a woman whose team has historically been very skilled at managing narratives, that silence is extraordinary. Some observers believe the silence reflects genuine shock. That Camilla did not expect and to move so decisively. That she believed her position as queen consort provided enough institutional weight to make her request at least seriously considered. The fact that it was reportedly dismissed without extended deliberation would have stung in a way that few things could. Others believe the silence is tactical. That Camilla's team made a rapid assessment and concluded that any public response would only amplify the story. Every word spoken in defense of Camilla's claim to the tiara would only remind the public of why she was refused. It would only put Diana back at the center of the conversation. And Diana at the center of any conversation is never good for Camilla. So the palace went quiet. And the quiet has its own texture. It is not the comfortable silence of a matter resolved. It is the tight, controlled silence of a wound being carefully managed. What makes this particularly fascinating is the position it puts Charles in. The king is caught between his wife and his sister. Between the woman he loves and the woman whose judgment he has relied on for his entire life. Anne and Charles have had their conflicts over the years. They are both strong-willed, both deeply committed to their own vision of what the monarchy should be. But their bond is genuine. Their shared history is long and deep. For Charles to override Anne's decision would be to publicly humiliate his sister and signal to the entire institution that Camilla's desires outweigh the considered judgment of the family's most senior working royal. That is a price most observers believe Charles is unwilling to pay. Particularly at a moment when public confidence in the monarchy is fragile and every decision carries outsized symbolic weight. Some reports suggest that Charles has privately acknowledged Anne's decision without attempting to reverse it. That he understands, even if he finds it personally uncomfortable, that Anne acted within her rights and with the best interests of the institution at heart. Whether Camilla accepts that explanation from her husband is another question entirely. What we know for certain is that the tiara is with Catherine. That Camilla's request was denied. And that the woman who was refused has chosen not to fight it openly. Which means the battle, if there is one, is happening somewhere the cameras cannot reach. And that is often where the most important royal battles have always been fought. There is a weight that comes with wearing a dead woman's crown. Especially when that woman was Diana. Especially when the world has never stopped grieving her. Catherine understands this. You can see it in the way she carries herself when she wears Diana's jewelry. There is no performance of joy. There is something quieter. Something more serious. A recognition that what she holds is borrowed from history and owed back to the future. Catherine has been walking alongside Diana's shadow since the moment she became serious with William. The comparisons began early and never stopped. The press measured her against Diana constantly. Her fashion choices. Her charity work. Her relationship with the public. Her ability to connect with ordinary people in a way that felt genuine rather than rehearsed. Every time Catherine stepped into a room, Diana's ghost stepped in beside her. For years, that comparison felt like pressure. Like an impossible standard set by a woman who had been gone since William was 15 years old. But something has shifted in recent years. The comparison no longer feels like a burden Catherine is struggling under. It feels like a mantle she has quietly, deliberately chosen to accept. The tiara transfer is the most visible symbol of that acceptance. But it is not the only one. Catherine has made a series of choices over the past several years that speak directly to her understanding of what Diana's legacy means and what it demands of the person who carries it forward. She has championed mental health causes with a depth and consistency that goes beyond royal obligation. She has engaged with childhood development research and early intervention programs in ways that reflect genuine intellectual investment. She has shown up for people in crisis not with the polished distance of a royal patron, but with the present, attentive warmth of someone who actually wants to understand their pain. These are not accidental choices. They are a continuous, considered effort to honor the spirit of what Diana stood for while building something that is distinctly and authentically Catherine's own. And saw all of this. and made her decision accordingly. But with the tiara now in Catherine's possession comes a responsibility that extends beyond wearing it beautifully at state occasions. Diana's legacy is not simply about jewelry or fashion or the memory of a tragic death. It is about what Diana represented to millions of people around the world who felt unseen by powerful institutions. People who looked at a princess and saw, for the first time, someone who looked back at them with genuine recognition. Catherine now holds the symbolic guardianship of that connection, and the world will be watching to see what she does with it. Some royal historians believe this moment marks a genuine turning point in the story of the modern monarchy. The transfer of Diana's tiara from Anne to Catherine is not just a private family decision. It is a public signal about direction, about values, about which version of the royal family the institution's most trusted voices believe should define the next era. That signal points clearly toward William and Catherine, toward a monarchy that honors its most painful chapter rather than burying it, toward a future built on the foundation of everything Diana suffered and everything she gave. There is something deeply moving about the fact that it was and who made this happen, and who was never Diana's closest ally, and who had complicated feelings about Diana's place within the institution, and who is not given to grand emotional gestures or public declarations of sentiment. The fact that she chose to protect Diana's legacy so fiercely, so deliberately, and so finally speaks to something that transcends personal feeling. It speaks to a recognition that some things are larger than individual relationships. Some legacies are larger than personal history. Diana belongs to the future of this family whether the family chose that or not. And Anne, in her characteristically quiet and absolute way, has made sure the right person is carrying that future forward. Catherine will wear that tiara one day in front of the world. And when she does, millions of people will not simply see a beautiful woman in a beautiful piece of jewelry. They will see a thread connecting the present to the past. They will see Diana honored in the most personal and powerful way possible. They will see a family that, despite everything, chose to remember rather than forget. That choice matters. It will always matter. And the woman who made it possible was not the one who will wear the crown. It was the one who made sure it went to the right hands. Diana's legacy is safe. And for the first time in a very long time, the people who love her most have genuine reason to believe it will stay that way. If this video moved you, please like it and subscribe for more deep dives into the royal family. Share this with someone who loved Diana. Her story